Well, good afternoon, everyone. I am coming to you live today. This is Fab News coming to you, and I'm coming to you live. I am in the studio today, and in the studio with me today, I have a special guest with me who is that of Robert Sampson from Scotland County Emergency Broadcast, and I'm going to bring Mr. Scotland on. I am certainly glad, Mr. Sampson. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mr. Sampson. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. So we have here again with us, Fab News. We have Mr. Robert Sampson from Scotland Emergency Management Broadcast. And Mr. Scotland, Mr. Robinson, I understand there was a lot going on with the storm today and so much that is taking transpiring. What I want to do with you today is just talk about the storm and what should the people look forward to, particularly in Scotland County, and what are you guys safety cautions you guys have put in place for them?
Yeah, so we've been monitoring the storm, monitoring the track of the storm, practically all week. And what we've been able to determine that is that each day when we get our update weather forecast, we're noticing the models keep trending more towards a more significant impact for Scotland County. And today really shed light that that's exactly where the trend is heading. I did just get off of a weather briefing with the National Weather Services in Raleigh just about 30 minutes ago. And it definitely looks like that this hurricane is actually going to go ahead and move off the coast of Florida onto the East Coast, where it's going to re-strengthen back into a hurricane. Looks like it's going to be a Category 1 hurricane, and then start heading north and then northwest back in to the Carolinas. Right now, the projection is it's going to make landfall somewhere around the middle part of South Carolina, somewhere around the Charleston, South Carolina area, and then move in a northwesterly motion. The projections are that we will start seeing rain, the first set of rain bands to come through early tomorrow morning. So early morning commute will be very wet. We may see some slight wind gusts in the 20 to 25 mile range in the morning. What they're forecasting is as the day progresses and moves on tomorrow, the conditions will continue to deteriorate. They are projecting that we could see wind gusts up to as much as 50 miles per hour tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening here in Scotland County, with a projected rainfall of anywhere from 2 to 6 inches of rain over the next 24 hours starting tomorrow. So that's not what we were hoping for. So we are getting prepared here on a local level. We do have meetings scheduled today for our stakeholders here in the county so that I can update them on what I'm sharing with you. And then we will make the decision on a time frame when we will start implementing our plan. We will be activating our EOC. It will be more of a partial activation starting tomorrow morning. So that we're on hand, on deck, ready to go to serve the citizens of Scotland County in the event that the conditions continue to deteriorate. I will tell you that we're just telling everyone, if you live in a low-lying area and you were prone to flooding back in 2018 with Hurricane Florence, that we're asking that you consider, gathering belongings and moving away for the weekend, not to stay home if you were part of the flood in 2018 with Hurricane Florence. We're asking that you, try to go stay with friends, family or friends outside of that area. We are anticipating power outages based off of the forecast that we got this morning. With 50-mile-an-hour wind gusts, that can bring down some trees, some tree limbs. That can bring down power lines. So we are anticipating some power outages. I wish I could give you a better, span as far as if it's going to be widespread or more localized. But at this point, I think it's safe to say that we will see some power outages. We could see some localized flooding. I mean, that's not out of the question. Receiving up to 6 inches of rain. If we get that amount of rain in a short period of time, that could create some localized flooding somewhere, especially in the low-lying areas here in our community. So, we're preparing for all of those things. We're making sure that we have all of our assets in place. So if we do experience any of those things, we're ready to deploy, we're ready to respond. Um, and we're here. We will be monitoring the conditions, and we will be taking all of our resources, and we're strategically putting them throughout the county so that we can best serve the citizens here.
Okay. One thing that I heard you say that I want you to reiterate on, I understand that you said, a few years ago, those who stayed in the low-lying area need to try to consider something else. I want you to just touch base on that, if you will, on the importance of why do they need to leave and the importance of having to put the rescue people in jeopardy and danger of having to come to rescue them prior to you telling them to leave.
Yeah, and you actually raised a couple good things there, and let's try to dissect those, if you will.
Okay.
We did not anticipate back in 2018 when Hurricane Florence hit us. Those who were here and remember, we knew we were going to get rain. And it was forecast that we could see, if I remember correctly, that we could see up to 6, 8, 10 inches of rain. What no one anticipated or what no one expected to happen was when Hurricane Florence finally made landfall, it stalled. And I mean, it was moving, at 2 to 3 to 5 miles per hour is all it was moving. And it just continued to dump rain on us. And before we knew it, we had received over 20 inches of rain in about a 24-hour period. And that's a lot of water to come down in a short period of time. And our creeks, our river basins, our drainage system just could not handle that much water at one time. And that's how we ended up getting the flash flooding that we got in the areas that flooded in 2018. So we fast forward now to Hurricane Ian. It's making a different track, and it's expected to kind of move in and move out quickly. But I'm wanting to err on the side of caution. That is there a possibility that we could see some similar things as far as getting a large amount of rain in a short period of time? And the answer to that is yes, it is possible. So with that being said, are we at risk again for those same areas to flood again? And the answer to that is yes, there is a risk. So we learned a lot from Florence, and we don't want to repeat a lot of the same things that happened during Florence. So that's why we are putting so much emphasis on, if you live in a low-lying area or if you live in an area that flooded during Hurricane Florence, we highly suggest and highly recommend that you retrieve now while it's dry, the skies are clear, wind's not blowing at 50 miles per hour, gusts. It's not raining yet. So now is the time to make those preparations, to make contact with family members or friends in other parts of the county or other parts of the state for that matter. And take a little mini vacay, if you will. Go get away for the weekend. Be safe. Let us handle things here, because you're right. The last thing we want to do is that we need to be putting our first responders in harm's way, to be driving on the roadway where we can't even see the road because the water's so high. And if you're not familiar with that, you lose perception. You don't know how deep that water is until it's too late and you're already in it. So you're hitting on all the right things, about the safety, the importance of not waiting to the last minute so that we don't have to put our first responders in harm's way when it can be avoided altogether.
Right. Another thing I want you to touch base on, I passed right at borderline of Scotland County, Robertson County, and I remember when the storm came, there was quite a few people who were injured because of carelessness in terms of moving barricades, getting out, wanting to sight see before everything was clear up. Want to just, if you will just talk to the listeners just for a moment of the importance of moving the barricade. I remember one story in particular where there was just a woman who was going right where she could see the driveway, but the problem is she moved the barricade and she went to that driveway, and the person who came behind her didn't realize that the waters was that deep.
That's exactly right. Yeah, yeah. You bring up a good point. So, when we're able to identify that we've got flooded areas out there, we intentionally put those barricades up. DOT, our first responders, we are intentionally putting those barricades up as a warning symbol to the general public that this is a hazardous area to not enter. Those barricades aren't put up to invite you in. Those barricades are put up to entice you not to come. Okay. I want the listeners to understand that if you see barricades, if you see tape up over areas, let that be your cue and your clue that there's something wrong. Stay away. Because if you move those barricades and you go past them, then you're putting yourself and your life in jeopardy. That something bad is about to happen to you. Because especially if we're putting those barricades up because of high waters. Okay, because you may see and say, "Oh, it doesn't look like it's that high. I can go across." You lose the perception. You don't know how deep that water is. And I can tell you from Hurricane Florence, I mean, we had first responders coming back and telling us, that was familiar with the terrain, that, they were in 4 and 5 foot of water, and that's dangerous. That's not good for anyone to have to be in. And even though it may not be running water or swift water, you got to think about all the contamination that's in that water. We were talking about that just earlier. So, you're putting yourself at such a great risk. If you try to move barricades, if you try to go around barricades or any type of barrier device that the first responders or DOT or anyone puts up. So we highly encourage that you do not move those items, do not move barricades. If you come up and you see that, turn around and go back in the opposite direction.
Well, I thank you so much. One last question I want to ask you, Mr. Robert, and then again, those of you who are just joining in, this is Robert Sampson with Fab News, and he's here from Scotland Emergency Management Coordinator, and he's giving us some input as to what the weather is going to do and how they're going to do. Now, I asked all emergency responders that I interviewed today, I know you cannot target an exact time when the storm is coming, but if you had to tell someone to leave their home, what would kind of ideally be the time that you would tell them that, hey, you probably need to start trying to get out of by this time and be gone and situated by this time?
The easiest way for me to answer that question is now is the time. Okay, now is the time to be making the plans to leave if you're going to leave. When the storm hits us in the morning, you're too late. That is not the time to be trying to plan and figure out where you're going to go, because the storm is here. It's on us. You're not doing yourself any good. Now is the time to be making those preparations, making those plans, making those phone calls, finding a alternate location to go stay, for this weekend. I mean, I would say till Sunday evening. Don't even try to come back home until, late Sunday evening. Let's let this storm pass. Let's let it get away before you try to return. But please do not wait till tonight. Don't wait till tomorrow to try to start thinking about it as far as where you're going to go. Start making those preparations today.
All right. Well, there you have it, Fab News. You got it right straight from Mr. Sampson, who is the Emergency Management Coordinator. I want to thank you so much, Mr. Robert, for taking time out of your busy schedule. And I am sure you and I will be doing a lot of talking throughout the weekend to try to keep the people updated. And again, I appreciate you and thank you so much for all that you and your staff do for Robertson and for Robinson as well as Scotland County, because you guys are neighboring, working together. So I want
Oh,
to thank you so much
absolutely.
for what you do.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. And again, we're preparing. We're getting ready for the storm. We always prepare for the worst and hope for the best, but we're here. And feel free to reach out to me. As I can make time to update your listeners, because I think that is what's going to be crucial to us surviving this, is getting the information out to the public, keeping them informed. So thank you again for having me, and I look forward to speaking with you soon.
All right. Thank you again, too.